Hello. Can you all hear me in the back? Okay, great. Hello, how are you? How many of you have taken a MOOC so far? Okay, well, I see some hands here. I know that a few years back we used to ask questions, which I have seen Andy DiPaolo ask at one time in one of the conferences in Germany. How many of you have taken online course? But now we ask about how many of you have taken MOOC. So we have come a long way since we started online education. And that's what I'm going to do today as part of my presentation, is to show you an overview about how we have gone through the various generations of online education, and then how we go to the MOOC as we stand today. And that will be essentially then handed over to Anant to take it from there. So what I'm going to do is take you through a journey to the MOOC. And that will be my own personal journey as one of the director of Hypermedia Lab at MIT, as well as principal educational architect involved in the MIT Singapore project. So with that understanding, number one thing we have to understand here is the MOOCs have finally arrived. And as you know, every day in various publications, you will see one or two announcements about the MOOC. And MOOC is in so much press today that everyone is trying to figure out, what is this MOOC? And as you know, it stands for Massive Open Online Course. And if you see now online, if you just Google MOOC, you will see that every major university, MIT, Harvard, University of California system, everyone is trying to get into the MOOCs. So where does this MOOC come from? If you remember, and I'm sure many of you who are the parents, you have kids who are playing games. And they play games like FIFA, where they are playing with hundreds of other people from all over the world, which is called massively open, games which are played by a lot of different people, which was called MMOG, massively multiplayer open games. And that's where the terminology came from, MMOG, where you could be anywhere in the world, and then you could be playing with hundreds of people. So if you look at the MOOC, one of the number one thing there is a lot of learning happens by the team learning through hundreds of students now connecting together and then forming what we call learning teams. And so there are some, I would say, paradigm shift that is happening now in terms of the learning as well as learning models and how MOOCs are going to make a difference in the way we have understood and thought about learning, especially in the context of higher education. So let's look at edX, which we'll talk about as a point, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But then we are also looking at for-profit endeavor like Coursera and Udacity, and there is a reason that they are not the only two players, but these are the major players in the field of MOOCs, which are really creating a lot of buzz in the nature. So let's go through a journey from 1996 to 2012. So that's the journey of MOOCs. So we start with one of the courses that I offered. I joined MIT as a student first in and I will not tell you the dates for obvious reasons. But when I completed my Ph.D. in 1992, I joined MIT Mechanical Engineering Department as a faculty, and also got involved with some of the online projects working with Anthony Patera and Bob Brown, as well as all of these people who were trying to get MIT Singapore program going. And so I offered a course, Desktop Learning for the 21st Century and Beyond. And that was open for all the faculty to understand how we can do technology in teaching. And the reason they asked me to do it because I was teaching a course in molecular dynamics, it so happened, a long time back with silicon graphics machine, which were connected directly with San Diego Supercomputing Center. So we could do this computation and show the pictures, show all the graphics in real time running from the supercomputing center. And that course got a lot of interest from the student body, both in nuclear as well as in other departments. And that's how I got involved and asked by then dean to say, why don't you do this for the department as well as School of Engineering? So I formulated what is called Hypermedia Teaching Facility. That was the beginning of it. As one of the first experiments that we did, and we are talking about 1996, produced the first CD-ROM. So this is how a lot of things, multimedia, you all know about it, but I'm going to take you through the journey. So starting with the fluid mechanics CD-ROM, where we took lots of videos from those videos, which were not looked at by the students in the library. We took them out, digitized them, put them in the CD-ROM, and now everyone started looking at those wonderful videos about the great professors like Geoffrey Taylor, who is given the credit to start a field of fluid mechanics. And this is where it comes down to in the MOOC sense as well. Won't you want to learn relativity from Einstein, if you had that way to do it? Or learn about quantum electrodynamics with Richard Feynman? And if you see that history, Richard Feynman, when he taught his course in Cornell, it was recorded and Caltech, and it is now being seen even today. And I think those are one of the things that MOOC is now going to provide. So from the CD-ROM, we then moved on to what is called Mosaic. Mosaic was the first browser which came out of NCSA, where it was a research project funded by NSF in UIUC, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And from that, we also started doing experiments. So what I did at that time, created a meta-mosaic interface to also teach using mosaic interface. So that's sort of beginning of the LMS models that we were trying that time. And that's where there was an interface created called Hypermedia Instruction and Teaching Environment. This was all done under the premise of Center for Advanced Educational Studies. So if you look at with that and Hypermedia Lab that we were doing lots of experiments, we also started looking at scalability of these products and what we call distributed learning. Then if you look at slightly later about 1999, we had a PBS project. And so we were streaming video by that time, and there was a company called Real Video. So we used the real time and real video in order to do real-time video production. And if you look at MOOCs today, and the reason I'm showing these specific examples, that a lot of these examples are now showing up in the MOOC in different incarnations. So what I call is evolution leading to the revolution. And the revolution part, I'm going to have Anant to talk. I'm going to talk about evolution. So if you look at in this evolution, the streaming video then were connected with the PowerPoints and all of that. So you could do real-time production of videos along with different kinds of learning assets. So about that time, Hypermedia Facility at MIT created lots of courses for mechanical engineering, all kinds of courses. And they were kind of the early part of LMS, Learning Management System. But then there were a lot of new LMS companies coming, WebCT, Blackboard, you name it, lots of companies. And what we also started doing experiment about that time is virtual labs. And you will see that in the MOOCs, those virtual labs are going to come back again. So we created a virtual lab called Mechanics of Material, where you could see the actual destruction of different kinds of material right in front of you through the videos. And that was called the Mechanical Properties of Materials Lab. And now these are called virtual labs. And there's a lot of effort now is going into the virtual lab, which is now becoming part of the MOOCs. So in that virtual lab, you could also see a lot of these experiments and video all together so that you have highly interactive experience. With that, we also did some of the web lab versus wet lab experiments. So we created a rotometer experiment for chemical engineering where you had to go and calibrate a rotometer, which is a flow measuring device in chemical engineering. And you had to do that in the classroom or in your lab, but you only got 2 chances to do it. When we created this virtual rotometer experiment, you could do hundreds of times. And what we found when we did the study between wet lab student and the web lab student, the web lab, the virtual lab student did better than the wet lab. Because in the wet lab or the actual lab, they only got 1 or 2 chances. But in the web lab, they were able to repeat it hundreds of times and master the understanding of how to calibrate an instrument. So there was this beginning of that, yes, with online education, even the experimental courses we can put online and get almost similar or even sometimes better educational results. With that understanding,
one of the most remarkable things I just mentioned to you is that the period of the oscillations is independent of the mass of the object. That would mean if I join the bob and I swing down with the bob, that you should get that same period. Or should you not? I'm asking you a question before we do this awful experiment. You count.
Wow, my expectations are high.
I want to hear you loud. You ready for this? Yeah. 3, 2, 1. And here is the femur of an elephant. 0. So I need a volunteer. 1, 2, relax. What does it remind you of? Two, 1, 0. Ah! T with Walter Lewin. 45.6 plus or minus 0.1 seconds. Physics works, I'm telling you.
So that is the excitement of one of the best physics professors at MIT, now available on the web. And we recorded about 900 hours of Walter Lewin videos at that time and created Physics Interactive Video Tutor Project. And just data there, physics at MIT had very high failure rate from the standards, about 15 to 18% got D or F. And when we created this Physics Interactive Video Tutor to almost redesign freshman courses, then we were able to get it down to 4.5%. And so we understood that the media and multimedia can play a role. But the question was, and this is where we are going journey towards the MOOC, is how can we take these best professors at MIT and other places and immortalize them by recording their teaching and learning methods in classroom, connecting that with the online medium and online different kinds of assets with animation, simulations, all kinds of virtual experiments, and get the best results. So if you look at, this was almost like a beginning of recording all these different videos from the best professor, putting them online. And if you look at MOOC today, you get the best professor, and anyone can join in. And this is about the time we also did Singapore MIT program. So now our challenge was to take professors like Walter Lewin and deliver them in about 10,000 miles away with 12 hours of difference in Singapore. And we did that successfully by using internet too, with the real-time video going 8 o'clock in the night, which was broadcast in 8 o'clock in the morning. So now you see we are going away from the distance issues and going forward with the MIT Singapore program, which is still alive, doing extremely well. And then came the, I would say, MOOC 1.0, which is MIT Open Courseware. So MIT made this decision that they are going to put all their content and courses online free. Anyone can access it. And I believe this was really a earth-shattering decision because most of the other universities were trying to do something different. They were trying to put the courses online and make some financial gains out of it, but MIT went completely on the other side. And I believe that is, even today, there are millions of users which are connecting to MIT courseware, open courseware, and taking advantage of that. The issue with MIT OpenCourseware was that it was only content and there were no learning processes involved in it. And as you will see in the MIT Open Courseware 2.0, which is now we call MOOC, you will see a lot of learning processes also involved in that. And this will lead to a lot of curriculum reforms, which is what we did in mechanical engineering. We used to do heat transfer and fluid mechanics separate. But with the curriculum reform, which was influenced by some of the online education, that became thermal fluids engineering. So with that and the architecture that was coming on, then came the scalability issues. And with that, also there was a project called Open Knowledge Initiative, where the idea was how can we create basic servicing processes so everyone can learn online. And that's where the new, I would say, the movement was open software. So if you look at the Linux Torvalds, the Red Hat Linux and the Linux, those all are going towards open. So going from open content to open software, and this is where we look at now, is that the brief history tells us open courseware to open knowledge initiative to open source software like Moodle and Sakai. Open Knowledge Initiative, which I was involved in later on, became Sakai, an open foundation where lots of universities, again, participated to share their LMS. And in today's time, even the corporate world is offering free LMS now. If you look at Pearson, has just offered a free LMS. So I think we are looking this whole idea, and then came some of the Berkeley free videos and also Khan Academy, which changed some of the thinking about learning and doing it in 10 minutes intervals. The small 10 minutes tutorial, then going to Stanford, which is where one of the first MOOC, the AI course was designed, and then now we are at the MIT MOOC 2012, which is circuit design and electronics, which is what was taught there. So if you look at the genesis of the MOOC, the way this term was coined, one of the first course was offered by computer science department by Sebastian Throne. And that was a course which was taken by 165,000 students. And that essentially surprised the Stanford itself. And I'm going to have Andy DiPaolo discuss that when he will be on the panel. What happened? Suddenly, there were lots of issues. How do you register 165,000 students and give them a credit? So eventually, they decided just to provide some kind of certification. So now you are looking at the problem. And so from the similar group, we also had Andrew Nugg and Daphne Kohler. And both of them have now gone out of Stanford with some connectivity with Stanford and started company. So the company there is udacity.com, and this is Sebastian Throne, and what they are doing along with his colleagues, they are trying to create lots of these MOOC courses in various areas. So if you look at courses are algorithm for social network, differential equations, lots of courses on there, but their model is to identify talents and manage those talents and send those very high-quality students that join the MOOC into different commercial organizations like Google and Microsoft. With this kind of understanding, you can see their interfaces are very simple. So they have a video, highly dependent on the video, with lots of information around video, which is essentially, if you look at here, classroom, discussion board, wiki, announcement. That's all there to it is right now. So if you look at, while the technology has gone on to do some of the things like adaptive learning and synaptic learning, the MOOCs are going a little bit backward in some sense in terms of technology, but they are providing a lot of dependence on the video. So if you look at Coursera, which is Andrew Nugg and Daphne Kohler's company, what they are doing, again, lots of courses. And if you look at these courses are now also getting some college credit. So there are lots of colleges have joined Coursera, and there is a financial model which is emerging. And the reason I'm showing this because the sustainability of MOOCs depends on some of the financial models. Because if you just provide everything for free, first question is that, so how do you sustain it? Because thousands of students connecting, and no one is paying a dime. So this is where some of the new models are being generated by companies like Coursera. And so they have all of these courses on network, creative programming, social network analysis. And what you will see, a lot of these companies are doing similar kind of courses in the similar areas. So there will be also competition between these MOOC providing services and entities. So this is the Coursera interface. If you look at here, again, very simple interface. interface, not much with the video in the front from the teacher, and then getting into announcement, lectures. If you look at all these lectures are on the right-hand side, all these other activity like syllabus of the course, everything on the left hand, very simple interface, and everyone has to learn now, and there's no contact between professors and the student directly, only through discussion board. So now we are looking at a model which is restrictive in some sense in terms of education. So now I'm alluding to some of the problems or some of the issues which we have to solve to become a successful MOOC. And these are the universities who have joined these MOOC interfaces. Then comes MITx, and this is their timeline. And I'm sure Anant will elaborate on that, but it started 2012 with the first course which was taught by Anant and his colleagues. Highly successful project in the circuit design, and you will see some of the numbers which I took from their website. So this is where we are now looking at the growing EDX initiative. And as I have done surveys of a lot of other MOOC initiatives, I think by far this is the most advanced endeavor that we are seeing today. So if you look at here, MIT, Harvard, Berkeley, University of Texas System, Wellesley, and now we are also looking at a few other people joining in, like Georgetown University very, very recently. So what we are seeing here, and we'll look at it very slightly in detail, these are the courses which are offered by some of the MIT professors, Harvard professors, as well as Berkeley and all of that. This is a course in the area of quantum chemistry, introduction to solid state chemistry. So if you look at here, the interface has video lectures, and you saw from the time of when we did physics interactive video tutor project, we started recording a lot of lectures of the courses. And then if you look at, there is a, if you look at this horizontal line, this is where video interaction, video interaction, video interaction, and then you have to do a problem set at the end, and that's how you will pass the course, and then you'll get a certificate, which I'm sure Anant will talk about. But if you look at interactive exercises are becoming a big part of it, which is what we are now calling gamification of the learning process, because there is no one doing the assignment checking by hand. These are all auto-graded assignments. You cannot do assignments checking for 160,000 students. I have not found any faculty who can do it. So if you look at from here, now there are problems like, I really don't get this. This is the student's comment on one of the discussion board. So 1,700 other students come in and say, I know the answer, let me tell you how to do it. That's what we call the team learning process. And then you can also add interactivity like interactive periodic table, etc. So if you look at, this is the typical data which I got from EDX website. 155,000 enrolled, 23,000 tried, and 9,000 took the midterm exam, then 7,157 completed it. And if you look at the A grades, were about 340. So there is almost like a funnel going in here. There are a lot of people who just join for the curiosity, and then they drop out. They're not serious about it. But if you look at the serious student, you will see that the output is large number of students, but attrition is very high. So let me just put some issues that we will discuss. Number one is low completion rate. Courseware is still one size fits all. There is no adaptability. And then dependence on video lecture is very high. Need more instructional design, quality of the content, not a personalized experience, so we need to add that element. Auto-graded assessment may not be sufficient. We need to have more assessments. Value of certification, we need to question that. Then there are a lot of issues with plagiarism, because people are working together in team. Who has really solved the problem? And then what about who is doing the course? I'm giving you certificate, but I do not know whether you are you. So there are some of these practical issues which are coming up as you are trying to use the various MOOCs. So if you look at the framework that we are trying to now use in the creation of adaptive MOOC is a multi-dimensional framework with 3 or 4 dimensions involved, which is called 4DL height, which is number one is media, models, interactivity, and social interaction has to all be put together. So all the multimedia has to be presented in the framework of learning pedagogy, which is 5 different learning pedagogies: apprentice, incidental, inductive, deductive, and discovery, which is, you can say, something like step-by-step learning, then case study-based learning, then example-based learning, learning by interaction, learning by games. And and then you provide a real-time intelligent feedback based on whether they are doing well or not, get their competency very high, and that's when you will see personalization of the MOOC. So I'm suggesting a model now, which we are going to try in the molecular dynamics MOOC that I'm creating in collaboration with the University of Massachusetts, that we can create adaptive MOOC which are going to run on the mobile tablets, because mobile tablets are going to become the part of ubiquitousness of available a lot of places. If you go to India, the rickshaw person who is driving the rickshaw has 3 cell phones. He may not have the laptop, but he has 3 cell phones. So I think this mobile is changing the field, the way we are going to look at education itself. So if we provide an adaptive learning cycle approach and provide a way that even 165,000 students can get something like a personalized learning experience, MOOC can really break the doors and change the world the way we are assuming that they would. So let me conclude very quickly. MOOCs have potential to bring real change in online education. Second, the sustainability of MOOC is still a question, but we can solve that problem, and this is what we will solve today. Low completion rates need to be improved with the efficiency of the MOOC. MOOC need to be, they have to use some kind of personalization tool like adaptive learning. And then adaptive learning with the mobile delivery of this content, I think can really change the world the way we see in terms of education. And of course, we also need to do a better job with the assessment. Thank you very much. So now let me turn to Anant Argawal without any further ado. I think we are all waiting for Anant's major contributions to hear about them, as well as what's his unique way of thinking about MOOCs with all the stuff that is happening every day. And he's very highly sought after person now. He has now made some of the list of the highly, I would say, persons which you should be watching for. If you look at the Forbes list, all of that, so he's become a celebrity status. After his talk, we're all going to get his autographs and things like that. Anant, come on in. Thank you.
Nishikant was always a troublemaker. Great. So before we begin, so one of the things we do in online learning with MOOCs is I like to call it the Socratization of education, where if you looked at education in the past, we all went to a large lecture hall, we sat down, and in my case, usually I would lose the professor after the first 5 minutes. And then the remaining 50 minutes, I would just be scribbling down some notes with no idea what I was copying and waste the remaining 50 minutes. And the real challenge was that students were not really sat down there, we followed or not, it didn't matter. The professor kept droning on, and was a real challenge. And we've been doing this for hundreds of years. The lecture style of teaching simply hasn't quite worked. So so with MOOCs and edX, one of the things we're doing is using more of the Socratic method, which is trying to teach by asking questions, promoting this concept called active learning that I'll talk about in a second. But before I do that, let me do the same practice here, which is use a Socratic method. So let me start by asking a question. 2 questions, in fact. So I'd like you to brainstorm and yell out what you think are the 10 biggest innovations in, pick a field, healthcare, transportation. Now let's do healthcare. Yell out in your mind the top 10 innovations in healthcare in the past 400 years. Antibiotics, imaging, MRIs. Anesthesia is big. Imagine getting, getting your arm cut or something, without.
Hand washing.
Hand washing, absolutely. So the list. We could sit here and have a list of techniques that go image-guided surgery that go on all day. Now let me ask you my second question. In the past 400 years, I'd like you to brainstorm about what are the 10 biggest innovation in education.
Whiteboards.
I like that, whiteboards. So the things I usually get are that directly connect to education are chalk. Chalk's a good one. You'll see another example soon. And some people say PowerPoint, but I don't buy that. I think PowerPoint took us really a step backwards from the blackboard. How many people agree with that? I think PowerPoint took us backwards. So the point really is that we really haven't applied computing technology and internet technology to computing in an absolutely concerted manner since the printing press. That was when we had a big innovation, and after that, we really haven't done much in education in hundreds of years. So here's an example. This was a classroom at a small institution in this area a few 50, 60, 70 years ago, and stare at it. And this is what the classroom looks like today. We have colored seats. Whoop-de-doo. And there's one big innovation here that you can see. Sliding blackboards. That's a big deal, folks. In the space of 2 blackboards, I can have 3 now. That's a big deal. But if that's the state of education in one of the institutions around here in Massachusetts, which is supposed to be the learning capital of the universe, shame on us. So what is edX? So edX is a not-for-profit venture of Harvard and MIT to really reinvent education. So both MIT and Harvard committed $30 million apiece for a total of 60. And it's nonprofit. Nonprofit means that we place principle over profit. It's based on an open source platform. We're going to give away the software to people around the world so they can all combine and help improve the platform. Some people think we're nuts, but I guess we are. We built a portal called edX.org, and universities offer courses on edX using an X brand. Berkeley offers courses Berkeley X. Wellesley College will offer courses Wellesley X. And coming to think about it, this X brand has been a really cool, somewhat of a breakthrough in edX, if I may say so myself. And the reason is, in the beginning, we had no idea what to call it, so we said, heck, we'll call it X, and we'll figure it out later. But then it sounded pretty cool, and so it kind of stuck. But the X brand is pretty nice because, so let's take, for example, a Berkeley X course. Okay, so a course is offered as a Berkeley X course. It's nice because the Berkeley name is there. You get a certificate as a Berkeley X certificate, so a student gets a nice little certificate. And the beauty is that now the student goes to Berkeley and says, hey, I did this course, I have a certificate from Berkeley X, give me campus credit. It's Berkeley's choice. They can give them campus credit. And some universities are giving credit. The UT Austin and UT system are going to be giving credits. Or they can say, aha, that's a Berkeley X course. It's not a Berkeley course. And so it's different. And of course, the campus experience is different from the online experience. So that works out pretty nicely. We're doing a lot of research on learning, and we publish some of the data. And we're gathering huge amounts of data and learning how students learn. Our vision is simply put, has 2 parts to our mission. One is to dramatically expand access to education for students worldwide. And second, to really reinvent the campus model, to really rethink how campuses work. So that's one of the big differences between edX and some of the for-profits that my friend Nish talked about, which is we care deeply about the campus model. That online learning is one thing, the campus model is different, and we hope to reinvent our campuses. And if you ask the question, why are MIT and Harvard and Berkeley and all of these universities doing this? And really, at the heart of it is that we really want to apply technology to learning. And we believe that this is the vehicle to do it. We will reinvent our campus education as a byproduct of offering online courses, bring them back on campus. So MIT, for now, as we speak, has 5 courses running on the online platform. It has 6 courses at MIT using the same platform and using it in a blended model on campus, where professors are combining the best of online and in-person learning on campus. So that's a big part of what we do at edX, is to really help improve the on-campus model as well. To give you some stats, Nish talked about some stats, and what I'll do is I'll try to, since he's stolen some of my thunder, which is great, I'll try to, I won't repeat the data, but I'll try to give you some of the inside scoop on it, okay? And I'll try to tell you some nice stories if I can. So here are some numbers. This is, I've done admissions at MIT for several years, for 4 years as undergraduate admissions. And so here are some numbers from last year. 18,000 students applied to MIT, and MIT admitted less than 10%, about 1,600. And same numbers, Harvard has similar numbers. And the admission rates differ in various universities. So when we taught the first course in spring, this was a circuits and electronics course. So we had 155,000 students from around the world take the course. Good. So 155,000 students enrolled in the first course, and Nish showed you the stats. 7,200 students passed the course, and actually 320 students got a perfect score. And one of the students, I'll talk about that student later, the 15-year-old from a land far, far away, we discovered a genius, a prodigy. He scored a perfect score on a MIT sophomore junior level course, which has differential equations, and he'd never seen differential equations before. 15-year-old from this land. I'll talk about it. So Nish also pointed out that there's a lot of attrition. True, 155 to 1,000 to 7,200, but imagine the number 7,200. So I teach about 200 students a year, about 100 students a semester in this course at MIT. And so here, in one offering, I taught as many students as I would in 35 to 40 years of teaching, in one fell swoop. Our textbook publisher, Elsevier, we convinced them to offer a free book in the course. And because they offered it for free, they ended up selling. They ended up selling 3 times as many books as they sold in the past year. Every single copy of the book got sold out in the world. And the electrical engineering book appeared on the Amazon computer science list as the #1 computer science seller. They could not find the electrical engineering category, so it appeared in computer science. The numbers are all pretty staggering. And the other exciting thing for the bean counters is that the resources we use for this course were the same as we would use for a 150-person class on campus. So it's pretty staggering how efficient you can be, and I'll talk about how we do that. So I talked about the student from this land far, far away. So this is the new classroom. So as we offered this course in the spring, this high school professor in this land far away got together 20 high school students, and they would do videos and exercises and interactive stuff online on edX. And then they would come to class, and they would work together in groups. Remember, there's no lecture now. Okay, we've thrown out the lecture, replaced that with videos and interactive exercises. And they would do a little labs in class and so on and so forth. So, where did this happen? Any guesses? You can look at the pictures here. Any guesses as to where this happened? If you heard of this before, I'll give you a little hint. Mongolia. So completely unbeknownst to us, the professor in Mongolia flipped the classroom and taught a set of high schoolers, and that's where the student Batushig. So Batushig was this 15-year-old who scored a perfect 100 on a MIT sophomore junior level class. So I encouraged him to apply to MIT, and he's now applied to MIT. And turned out that one of our TAs went to Berkeley, and he encouraged the student to apply to Berkeley too. So now Berkeley and MIT are going to fight over this prodigy. So it's amazing. We're going to discover students from around the world, and they're going to get some amazing opportunity in this manner. So let me spend a few minutes talking about what a course looks like, and try to go a little deeper into some of these things and give you the inside scoop. Nish did a great job of doing some overview of what's in an online class. So this is our dashboard. You saw this before in Nish's slides. This is the dashboard for Berkeley's course in artificial intelligence. So on the top, you see a number of activities. There's courseware, there's a discussion forum, so on and so forth. And the student is right now in courseware. So in courseware, we replace a lecture with what we call a learning sequence. So we're innovating in learning as well. So lecture, you come to a class, sit for 50 minutes, get bored to tears, and you walk away. So here, you take a sort of video snippets, each 5 to 15 minutes long. I like to call them Khan-style videos, and Khan has been a huge inspiration to me. He was also my student. And so Sal, Khan, and I just sit down and brainstorm about videos. In fact, I've put together a course. It's called edX 101, where in an online course, I'm trying to teach students how to create an online course online. And so Sal Khan has also contributed a video on, it's a Sal Khan video on how to create a Khan-style video. So if you really believe in teaching online, well, we got to teach online how to teach online. So, which is a lot of fun. So we'll have a SalCon video there as well. So there's videos in these learning sequences that you see up here. You see a sequence of videos and exercises that Nish talked about. These are interleaved videos and exercises, where students do a video or two, and they do an exercise. And that really promotes this thing that I call Socratization of learning, where every student gets asked a question to make sure they've understood the material, and they can pace themselves. And students are telling us that they're really enjoying this because they get to test themselves, they get to really understand the material before they go on. They can, in my lectures, as I was as an undergrad, I constantly wanted to hit the pause button or rewind, and I could never do that because after the first 5 minutes, I would lose the professor, and I would be 6 blackboards behind. And so wouldn't it have been great if I could have hit the pause button? Here you can hit pause, you can rewind, and in some cases, the big one, you can hit the mute button. And you can hit the mute button, and you can read the transcription on the side. We do that both for accessibility and also to allow students to navigate. In fact, when we taught a blended class on campus with the same course with 20 students, a majority of students told us that they watched the videos at 1.5 times the speed, mute the professor, and read the transcription. So what students are telling us is that prefer to mute the lecturer in class and just watch some stuff and read some text and move on, and running it at 1.5 times the speed. And I think I talk fast, and they're speeding it up even beyond that. So really this allows students to personalize the experience to some extent and make it more like how they really want to interact. So let me talk about the learning sequences. Learning sequences promote active learning, this thing about the Socratic method. And this really comes from a study done by Craig and Lockhart in 1972. This is a landmark paper. In my mind, this is probably one of the best papers in education and learning in the history of research in education. So 40 years ago, they discovered that from a real study, scientific study, they found that learning and retention was related to the depth of mental processing. So sit in a lecture, you will not get anything. You watch some videos and you answer some exercises, you process what you've learned, and you get to revisit things. That is provably better in terms of learning outcomes. So online learning with learning sequences in edX is not just about increasing access to education and sticking some videos on a website and streaming them to places. That is really selling it short. It is really about promoting new kinds of learning called active learning, which, by the way, 40 years ago was shown to be was dramatically better than just passive learning. And people ask me, in some sense, what we're doing is nothing new. These things have been known for 40 years. I've been teaching at MIT for 25 years. How come I did not know about this? How come no one told me, hey, you got to do active learning? We were trying to figure things out by the seat of our pants. And what I'd like to say is that for the first time, because of MOOCs, education has become hot. Heck, in California, VCs are funding education companies. How cool is that? So the really interesting thing here is that MOOCs have become hot, education has become hot, and for the first time, professors are reading papers about education. This is the first paper I read in my 25 years on education and how students learn, and why one way of learning is better than some other way. And just look around you, talk to professors around you and teachers around you. How many teachers have really looked at what the right ways of educating, research in education? Very few people do. For the first time, we're learning using technology and applying that to learning to see how students learn, what works, what doesn't learn. On our platform in edX, we do A/B tests. Even in the first course, we did an A/B test where we gave 70% of the students one thing, 30% another thing, and we did not know which was better. And then we correlated that to student outcomes, and we published this inside the higher ed. So we can do these massive, grand-scale experiments. So I like to think of the edX platform as sort of the modern generation particle accelerator for education, where we can do these big experiments and learn huge things about learning in just a dramatic manner that we could never have done before. So next up, so that's active learning. Next, I'll chat a little bit about interactive exercises, where students have to do these exercises, and again, a great thing happens here. So when you do homework in a regular class, I can continue. So let me go back. I was just going to show you a little video snippet. This is a Khan-style video to show you how. So we try not to capture videos from lectures in class. We do that because that's a convenient thing to do. But really, we need to move to new forms of learning. And so here's a Khan-style video where
okay, so you see this amazing thing happening? And the key is that the stable point is when V plus equals V minus. Okay, it's not exactly equal. Okay, it's more or less equal to each other. Okay, V plus more or less equal to V minus.
So Khan really popularized the style of videos. No face, no lecturer, just handwritten text. And guess what? A study by Mayer in 2003 showed that a more personalized form of teaching is actually better than a much more formal style. So a lot of things that we're doing. So I just made this a bit of a mission of mine to go in and just look for all the things we're doing that are working well. And I started out by saying, let's do experiments to prove these are good ideas. But it's all there. I'll show you a number of other examples where people have proven that these are just good ideas. So in terms of being able to make progress and pause videos, there again, it's been shown. A study by Mayer in 2003 showed that students who were able to press a continue button and pace themselves simply perform better in terms of learning outcomes than those who couldn't. Again, it's been there, done that. We're not doing anything new. We've known it. Just that we've never listened to these things. For the first time, we are listening. Actually, no, we didn't listen. We just did something, and it kind of worked. And then after the fact, I went around looking for research, and I found that it was a good idea. So good. So all of these things are so people say, why are MOOCs working? Why are MOOCs exciting? They're exciting because they will improve, they will change the face of learning. They will make education dramatically better on our campuses and worldwide because thing after thing that we're doing will improve and enhance learning. Self-paced learning, where you can hit the pause button. Interactive, active learning, where you interleave exercises and videos. I'll show you more examples. So in edX, you clearly cannot grade 150,000 students' exercises. So we provide a rich set of auto-graded exercises and instant feedback to the students. So here's an example. I'll show you a video. So we do a very rich set of exercises. edX is pretty unique in that we do a lot of research. And we have a large number of exercise types. We have, I'll show you chemical equations here. We can do image response. We can do formula response, of course, multiple choice, numerics, statistics, a whole slew of response types. So I'll show you a little video of a chemical equation assessment. So a student writes a chemical equation, and the computer renders it, and the student gets instant feedback. They say, hey, what happened here? And students, oops, I made a silly mistake, and so they corrected it. They made a little mistake, and they corrected it, and they then got it right. So that's instant feedback. Instant feedback is a big deal. Guess what? It's been proven to be improved learning outcomes. And our students are telling us this. So students get a green tick mark when they get a problem right. And so students on our website are telling us that they go to sleep dreaming of the green check mark, of their instant positive feedback. That's become a cult symbol. They've been designing T-shirts with the green check mark. And so there was a student who took our spring course, and then he took a Berkeley course this fall on software as a service, and here is what he had to say on the discussion forum related to the green tick mark. Oh God, have I missed you. So this instant feedback is a big deal, and guess what? It's been shown to have a huge impact on learning outcomes. This is a study by Chen in 2010 that showed that rapid feedback to students has a significant positive effect on student learning than no feedback. And all of us know about our homeworks. When you submit a homework, you get something back 2 weeks later, you've forgotten all about it. And so here people keep trying and trying and trying. It becomes like a video game. This is kind of an approach where we're applying gamification to learning, where why do you love a video game? Okay, so let's say I'm trying to, depending on the audience, if I was talking to the NRA, I would talk about shooting at something. And since I'm not on the NRA here, I won't talk about it. So if I were talking to the NRA, you have a gun and you shoot at something, and you miss the target, you try again, and you keep aiming and you're trying till you get it. That instant feedback is critical to the learning process, and that really engages you. So with our platform, students are telling us they're spending way more time than they ever did with homeworks. So I said, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And the students would tell us, well, we're still trying to figure out is it a good thing or a bad thing. And the reason is they're sucked in. They're hooked. The harder the problem, the longer it takes, the more they get hooked. And when they get the green tick mark, they go to sleep and they dream about green tick marks. So how cool does it get? And this is a good thing for student outcomes. So every one of these things is just a good thing for learning, whether on campuses or providing access. And so at edX, we really stress the quality aspect of learning, which is why we think we will improve campus learning as well. The discussion forum is a big deal. Nish talked about it, so I won't dwell on it. Students are helping each other and solving problems with each other. I'll tell you a little story here. When we began this, we had 155,000 students. And so I had 4 TAs, and I told them all, 7 by 24. We're going to sit by the discussion forum, and we're going to be typing away answers. So at 2 a.m. at night, when our course started, I was up on the forum, and a student asked a question. I don't type that fast, and I begin typing an answer. I noticed that another student, this was a student from the US asking a question, and I think this was a student from Pakistan answering the question, popped up with the answer. Not quite right. I type in, trying to fix the answer. Before I know it, somebody else has popped up with an answer. Then I sit back and relax, and the students are answering back and forth, and before I know it, they've got the right answer. So as a professor, I'm able to bless an answer. I'm able to say, good answer, and that's all I did. That's it. And then towards the end, we discovered students that said, we really learn by teaching. They're really learning by teaching on the discussion forum. So we've turned one of our weaknesses into a strength. And after that, I told my TAs, I don't want you to answer a question on the forum unless 3 to 4 hours have gone by. I want the students to try to figure out things by themselves. So, if you'd asked me 6 months ago or a year ago, what would be the single biggest thing you learned, this would be it, that students would learn by teaching. We bring gaming very heavily into our platform, and we have a virtual game-like laboratory where, it's easy enough to show videos and have people passively watch it. But the challenge is, how do you teach design? How do you teach creativity? How do you teach people to build something when something doesn't exist? So give students a blank sheet of paper. We built an online lab. And students have a bunch of components on the right-hand side that you can't see too clearly. And there's some analysis tools on top. It's like a lab. And so we're building labs in a number of fields, in physics, in chemistry. This one's a circuits lab. So I'll show you a little demo of a student building something and trying it out. So you can see the student building something. So this is a virtual laboratory, and where they can construct stuff, and we can also grade it automatically by computer. There you go. And Nish talked about it. When students can do these experiments, tens of times, it's much better than having to walk to a classroom when the lab is open and doing something with, when equipment is limited. And just imagine in terms of access, most universities don't have equipment like this. So students can actually make use of these things much more effectively. We can bring in multimedia experiences into laboratories. So here we bring music and other stuff into a lab. This is another lab on edX. And here we bring in music into a lab. Now, the student can pick among a set of music. And the reggae music is very popular. And so I'm going to show you a little clip where you can see a student doing an experiment. And over time, we want students to be able to upload their own music and do a lab with their own music. So here the student will do a couple of things and see how the music sounds each time they change what they've built. So now the student changes the parameters, and he's built a different kind of filter, so music needs to be muffled. So now students, and we don't do this at MIT in a real MIT labs. When people build things, it's theoretical, but here they can listen to how this is going to sound in the field. And again, one student said, I had no clue what I was doing, but I really enjoyed the reggae music. So when students finish, we give them a certificate of mastery. So here's, it looks like a real certificate, and we're creating new policy. So we had to decide, okay, who signs such a certificate? And so MIT rapidly created an interim dean of online learning to sign certificates. And now they've created a position called the director of digital learning. And so at university, we're trying to figure these things out as we go. Here's the traffic by country. Let me ask you a question, the Socratic method. US was #1 in terms of traffic, learners. India was 2. UK was 3. You want to guess who was number 4? You'll never guess. Who was 4? Not China. Colombia. No idea. And students seem to have loved this. Here's a student from Pakistan who said they really enjoyed the course and learned a lot. So let me pause there and pass it back to Nish and Al. Thanks.
I think this was a very good presentation. Anant, I think not only you showed us some of the example, but also proved the point that if an online education is done correctly, and with the pedagogy behind it, and also learning models behind it, like Socratic model that you are using there, and also different kinds of interactivity, then we can reach large number of populations. So with that final comment, I want to thank you, Anant, for coming here, and also Alan for organizing this. And so now,